So I'm going to lead off with my favorite buy. And that's Chris Godwin.
Is it your favorite Williams?
No,
Favorite Williams.
He doesn't even remember the joke. That's
he doesn't even remember. The Javonte Williams.
Remember the
cursive
Javonte Williams?
that I thought said
favorite Williams.
That I thought said favorite.
I just drafted Javonte Williams.
Did you?
In the Kings Classic.
It's the same one you were just talking about.
Yeah, my first share ever of all time.
It feels good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, not really, to be honest with
It
you.
feels
Like,
amazing.
I don't love it.
I'll say it
the
feels
value's
good for you.
there. Like I probably won't be able to use them this year, but like the value's there. You know how ACLs are. You got to wait a year.
He's gonna.
So
he's gonna
and
lead
speaking of
league in rushing.
ACLs and wait a year, Chris Godwin. Right? Like so Chris Godwin, he played last year, ended up being wide receiver 19 overall. Wide receiver 17 in points per game, averaged 14.9 points per game, which was I find overly impressive because, well, one, they threw a ball a ton with Tom Brady, but like coming off that, like he made a miraculous comeback to come back from the ACL to even be ready, makes that big comeback. Obviously, then that first week hurts his ACL and he's out for a couple of games. But he comes back in.
Was that it? It was a retweak of the ACL.
Oh, the hamstring. I'm sorry.
I was going to say I didn't think it was a retweak.
Yeah, he came back from the ACL. Then he hurt his hamstring. Missed the first 2 weeks. And we're like, oh, great. After some people didn't even think he'd be able to start the year because of the ACL. But ended up finishing the year as wide receiver 19. Like I said, wide receiver 17 in points per game. But if you also look at Chris Godwin, from weeks 9 to 18, the second half of the year, he was wide receiver 8 overall in PPR leagues. This is a guy who's only 27, won't be till 28 until the season's over. He signed through 2024. And when you look at him over the last couple of years, in 2021, last year, he was wide receiver 15. He was wide receiver 8, though, on points per game basis, 17.3 points per game. And if you actually go back, like he was wide receiver 15, but if you go through the weeks he actually played, 1 through 15, which was when he tore his ACL, he was wide receiver 6 overall. In 2020, he was wide receiver 31 overall, but on a points per game basis, wide receiver 15. He missed 4 games that year as well. And of course, we all remember 2019, his sophomore year, where he was wide receiver 2 overall, averaging 19.7 points per game. So, with the quarterback change, no more Tom Brady. With what some consider him being wide receiver 19, a down year, him only being 27, he's one of my absolute favorite buys in Dynasty right now because he's always been really consistent when he's on the field, producing top 10 fantasy wide receiver numbers. And right now, to get that kind of player that put up that kind of production, outside the big guys, like you have to overpay. And right now for Chris Godwin, you could probably get him from. So basically, if I had picked 1-7 on, right, like I was in the playoffs, I lost. Or I was in if you play in my leagues and you get pick 7, that means you won your toilet bowl playoff league, which should be every rule in every league, by the way.
Yes, love that rule.
Yeah. So right now from 1-7 to 112, you could probably get Chris Godwin for that pick, and he's a fantastic ad for any team that's like right there in the middle. They're going on. You're getting a guy you could probably put in your roster for at least the next 3 years, and give you worst case scenario wide receiver 2 numbers. Like his years where he gets hurt and he misses time or he tears ACL and starts off slow, he's still a mid-range to high-end wide receiver 2.
And that's the thing with Godwin. It's always been his availability. He always misses time. When he's there, he's usually doing very good things. You're going to miss chunks of time. So you have to almost work around that and kind of know that's built into his game. You're going to be missing a chunk of games here and there. And as long as he's not your number 1 guy,
correct,
I think you can work around that. You know what I mean? If he's your number 1 guy, you're going to have a hard time with that. And you're going to have a hard time, being a championship caliber, team, because it's just there's that little bit of unknown with him.
There's always a risk of an injury guy.
Right.
And you're right. That's always going to be the risk for him. But you do, like you said, you want him to be your wide receiver 2, and hopefully you buy him as your wide receiver 3 if you're starting to be contended. Like, say you have a couple older guys, say you have Amon-Ra, St. Brown, Tyreek Hill, and then your third wide receiver is, I don't know, Donovan Peoples-Jones. That's a terrible thing.
Michael Thomas.
Yeah, someone was like, Chris Godwin's a great go out there and get. I mean, I'd be actually comfortable if I had like pick 12. Like I'd give 212 and 112. Like no problem for Chris Godwin. Me personally, which might
I don't
seem
think
like,
that's a bad deal.
Was good. Something like 2 a first and a second. Yeah, it's 2 late picks. If I have 1-7, I'm giving up straight up, right? Because like if I'm at mid range, like would I rather take Jordan Addison and wait a couple years for him to develop, or rather get Chris Godwin, throw him in there? And with Baker Mayfield, if it all works out for Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay, then obviously Chris Godwin's golden, right?
For sure.
And if it doesn't,
That's the big question mark.
guess what? They'll have a new quarterback in 2024 anyways.
He is on the franchise tag too, so he could be on a different team anyway.
Who?
Chris Godwin. Isn't he on the franchise
No,
tag
he's
this year?
re-signed.
Oh, did they sign him?
He signed through 2024.
Oh, my bad. I missed
signed
that.
a 3-year deal.
Okay.
So he's actually signed all the way through next year as well.
Okay.
And what Baker Mayfield does is actually come in. Like Baker Mayfield somewhat hurts like Mike Evans, right? Like Mike Evans, that deep threat, go out, big time throw. Where Baker Mayfield's a lot more comfortable with the shorter passes out there. And that's where Chris Godwin's going to come in and win. You know, I'm not a big Rashad White guy this year too. I think this team is going to, try to run the football, but they're going to end up having to throw the football. And Chris Godwin's going to be the benefit of that. So even though he didn't look himself 100% early in the year last year, and it took him a little time to develop, always remember that this is something that the ACL, it's always a year afterwards. And something that's going to come in and average about 16 to 17 points per game, that is Dynasty gold.
Yeah.
It really is. It's that high-end wide receiver 2 window, and that's where you win in Dynasty, getting those kind of guys. We've been talking about that for years, those high-end wide receiver 2s that get diminished.
Let me ask this question because I'm 100% with you. I think Chris Godwin's a really good buy. I bought him last year. I was glad I did. My only small nugget of concern, other than Baker, if it works out or not, is he had a really, really high target number last year. He was actually 6th overall in targets per game. So are we worried a little bit that they're not going to throw the ball a ridiculous amount like they did with Tom Brady last year, that 9.5 targets per game, which is really high, goes closer to 7.5 per game, and then we don't have quite the target numbers that we did before?
142 is what he had last year.
I think he's the number one on the team. I mean, obviously you have Mike Evans there too. And I think the team's going to know their 2 best weapons are going to be their receivers, right? And they also have Russell Gage there. So I'm not going to, and they're paying him okay money. So I'm not going to throw him to the wayside, I don't believe in Rashad White enough to think that's going to be their ground. That's what they're going to go with. And, and Raheem, he's coaching for his job. So it's not like he's going out there just to tank it up, right?
Oh no, he's got to win or he's done.
They're in the NFC. So that's another positive.
Easier division.
There's easy wins there, so they should be in a lot of games as well. In today's NFL, you're going to throw the football. And they're going to want to see what they have in Baker Mayfield, too. They need a quarterback. So they're going to give him a legit chance. I know the first day of OTAs, he took 70% of the first team snaps. So, yeah, is there a concern there? But, we could say the same concern with anybody as a fresh quarterback, that's coming in here. So, no, because I think the talent is there. And I think the talent will rise to the top. And just like he did it with, he did it with Jameis Winston. He can come out and make Baker Mayfield better. And you could argue this is going to be Baker Mayfield's best receiving core he's ever played with.
No, I think their top 2 guys are better than any other top 2 guys. He played with Odell and Jarvis, but these 2 guys,
they weren't on the same page at all.
Right. These 2 guys I think are better. We'll see if he gets on the same page with Mike Evans and what's his name here? What's his name that we're talking about?
The guy with the hands.
The God and the wind and the Godwin guy.
Godwin.
Yeah. I know everybody wants to go out and buy a 25-year-old good receiver. But the price tag is ridiculous.
It's not worth it.
You're giving up you're literally unless you drafted really well in a lot of picks, you're subtracting from your team pretty drastically. They'll get an Amon-Ra St. Brown.
And Godwin would be this guy that's ridiculously overpriced if it wasn't for the fact that he misses time. And that's his deal. That's why you're getting him at a reduced price. When he's there, he produces.
And you're fine. That's what you're looking for, right? That's why there's outlet malls that exist. You're looking for that bang for your buck, that good deal. Oh yeah, I know he came out 5 drafts ago, but wow, is this on sale for a third of the price?
It's still in style.
And you're looking for that. And honestly, when you play Dynasty, that's what I'm doing. Everybody's oh, my rookie, my rook. Your first should be whatever you can do to make your team better, right? That's what it's there for. So once you're outside that top 7 and you're a playoff team and contender, you're looking for people to help you take that next step. For the most part, rookie receivers, rookie tight ends, and rookie quarterbacks aren't helping you take that step. So if you need receiver help, this is the move. It's my number 1 Dynasty wide receiver buy.